Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to kick off today's presentation on the psychology of attraction, why your first date should make your heart race. Today, we'll explore how our feelings of attraction might be influenced by more than just obvious chemistry. We'll look into a fascinating study from 1974 by psychologists Dutton and Aron, which reveals how our brains can mistake fear or excitement for romantic interest. And most importantly, I'll share a surprising tip that could change how you approach your next first date. So, let's dive in and discover what really makes sparks fly. In this slide, I want to talk about a study that really changed how we understand attraction. It's a classic experiment by Dutton and Aron that's often cited in psychology. The setup was quite clever. An attractive female researcher approached men in two different situations. First, on a high, shaky suspension bridge, so quite an adrenaline-inducing environment. The other time, after they had crossed onto stable ground, so a much calmer setting. She asked each man to do a simple task, look at an ambiguous image, and then create a story about it, which is called the thematic apperception test, or TAT. This is a way to gauge underlying thoughts and feelings. At the end, she gave them her phone number, claiming it was for follow-up questions about the study. What's fascinating is what the researchers found. Men approached on the shaky, high bridge wrote stories that contained significantly more sexual imagery. Plus, they were much more likely to call her afterward. This suggests that the heightened arousal from the unstable environment was linked to increased attraction or sexual imagery in their minds. This experiment is a great example of how our emotional state and physical environment can influence attraction. It ties into the broader theme of how context and physiological arousal play key roles in romantic and sexual responses. So why does this happen? Well, it all comes down to how we interpret our physiological arousal. That's the body's physical response to stimulation, things like a racing heart, adrenaline rushing through us, or palms that sweat. These are all signs that our body is reacting strongly to a situation. Now imagine you're on a shaky bridge. Your heart races, your palms get sweaty. These are your body's responses to the perceived danger. But here's the interesting part. Our minds can sometimes misread these signals. In the case of the men on the bridge, they felt nervous excitement, those physical sensations, yet they mistakenly thought it was romantic attraction to the woman nearby. Their bodies were signaling danger, but their minds interpreted those signals as desire. This is what we call the misattribution of arousal. Basically, it's when our physical excitement, whether from fear, danger, or something else, is confused with emotional excitement, like love or attraction. This concept is really important because it shows how our perception of physical sensations can influence our feelings and behaviors. And it ties into the overall theme of understanding how our emotions are shaped not just by the actual situations we're in, but also by how we interpret our body's responses. Let's take a quick look at the different theories of emotion and how they explain the way we actually experience feelings. First up is the James Lange theory, which suggests that when you see a bear, your body reacts first, like your heart racing, and then your brain interprets that physical response as fear. Basically, the physical reaction comes before the emotional feeling. Next is the Cannon-Bard theory. According to this idea, when you spot a bear, your brain processes the threat and triggers both the feeling of fear and the physical reaction, such as a racing heart, at the same time. So in this view, emotion and physiological response happen simultaneously, not sequentially. Then we have the Schachter-Singer two-factor theory. This one adds an interesting layer. It suggests that after seeing the bear, your heart races, and then you interpret that bodily arousal based on the context. If you're in the woods and see a bear, you might interpret your racing heart as fear. But if you're at a sports game, it might be excitement instead. So the key idea here is that our interpretation of physiological arousal shapes what emotion we actually feel. Supporting this, Dutton and Aron's experiment showed that how we interpret physiological arousal significantly influences our emotional experience. It highlights that our perception of bodily responses plays a crucial role in how we understand our emotions. Overall, these theories help us understand the complex relationship between our body and mind, when it comes to emotions, reminding us that feelings are often a combination of physiological responses and our interpretations of those responses. So, what's the main takeaway here? It's actually pretty simple. If you want your first date to create a stronger sense of attraction, do something that gets your heart rate up a bit. Instead of sticking to the usual dinner and a movie, try something more exciting. Maybe a roller coaster, a hike, a zip line, or even a spontaneous adventure. These kinds of experiences generate shared physiological arousal, and that's key because the brain can easily interpret that arousal as emotional connection. And just to be clear, this isn't about manipulation. It's really about understanding the psychology of human experience. When we feel excitement, our brains naturally look for a reason why. More often than not, the person we're with becomes the most obvious explanation for that feeling. So, by creating moments of excitement, you're naturally fostering a sense of connection, without any tricks involved. A word of caution. Of course, this doesn't mean that every thrilling experience will automatically make someone fall for you. Attraction is actually quite complex. It involves personality, compatibility, timing, and many subtle cues that we might not even realize. The misattribution of arousal really highlights that context matters a lot. If every date is filled with adrenaline and novelty, it can be fun, but it might cause issues later on during quieter moments, like when you're just staying in for dinner and a movie. So the key is balance. While excitement can definitely ignite initial attraction, emotional stability is what helps sustain a relationship over time. Think of excitement as the spark that gets things going, but stability as the foundation that keeps the relationship strong. This ties back to the overall theme, understanding what truly fuels lasting connections. Because, ultimately, a healthy relationship needs both the thrill of excitement and the comfort of stability. So, when you're planning that next first date, consider skipping the usual dinner reservation. Instead, pick something a bit more stimulating and memorable. It could be hiking, dancing, or even exploring a new part of town together. The key idea here is shared excitement, that feeling of doing something new and fun together. It can really make both of you feel more alive, more engaged, and more connected. And here's an interesting point. Sometimes what we call chemistry isn't just about emotions or attraction. It's actually physiological. Our bodies respond in ways that can deepen that connection, making the experience even more meaningful. So, by choosing activities that get your adrenaline going or spark curiosity, you're actually engaging both your mind and your body, and that can create a stronger bond right from the start.